Hey guys, and welcome to another Let's Max episode. We're going to continue cutting our way through the War Within weapons that came out by taking a look at another spoilery weapon, the brand new Glaive, the Orvius. Now the Orvius is the Glaive used by Teshin during the War Within quest. It's expanding a fairly small pool of Glaive weapons. You get the blueprint from the War Within quest, and then the parts drop from the Kuba Guardians and Jesters when you encounter them in a Grineer mission, plus a fairly monumental 4,000 Kuba to build. So what do you get from it once you've put the parts together and built it? Base damage of 50, the majority 37.5 comes in the form of slash, 10 as impact, 2.5 as puncture. It actually is the most damaging of the thrown melee weapons by quite a distance. Its supplemental stats, 10% crit chance, 200% multiplier, isn't really enough for a crit build. 10% status really isn't enough for a status build either. Then you have a monumentally slow attack speed of 0.75, which doesn't exactly help matters. So when you look at the base stats, it's not looking good for the Orvius, right? Well, it does have advantages. The single best tracking of any of the Glaives means that when you're throwing this out, fairly often you are going to hit multiple targets at a time. So that can help with one of my major hates of the Glaives, and that is some properly weird tracking that a lot of them have. But the fact you can throw it also means you can hit weak spots, things like Banshee sonar spots or headshots for example, which improve the damage. And then you have its charge attack, its single best feature. What happens here is that when you are channeling and do a charge attack, the Orvius will get to the enemy you have aimed at and then lift them in the air. You suspend them there, you do 5 ticks of damage over 5 seconds. Each tick seems to have a 100% chance of proccing something, whether that's the cold that's built into the weapon on the charge attack, IPS, or any elemental combo that's on there. Once that 5 seconds is over, it will do a radial explosion, damaging enemies around it. Since it's a melee weapon, all damage done is subject to stealth multipliers as well. So if you use a Radial Blind or Inaris's Pocket Sand, and then use the charge channel attack, and watch as it shreds the highest level enemies with ease, especially if you combine it with something like the Gas Prog. This has some insane scalability and really is the standout feature of this weapon. So with that in mind, how do I go about building the Orvius? Well, I added 2 former to it, brings it up to 3 Vs and a dash. The build I've got, and I only do have one build for this, is that I have Prime Pressure Point, Prime Fury and Prime Reach. That helps landing the normal melee hits easier, but I'm also still testing whether it affects the explosion range. It's kind of hard to tell really. Then we got Body Count for keeping up the keeping our combo multiplier higher, but if you are going purely charge attack, you could replace that with something like Quick Return, and that removes some of the bounces from the actual weapon. We've got Whirlwind for faster flight speed, that's really nice. We've got Power Throw for punch through. It's kind of debatable whether Power Throw is useful here. Some say that the weapon has innate punch through on the weapon already. I'm not convinced by that yet, which is why I still have the Power Throw Power Throw on here. And then you've got 90% elementals. I go with Gas for the insane scalability that it has and the synergy with the charge attack and blinds. However, this is where you can put your elemental of choice on here. Right now, charge attack mods do not affect the damage from the charge throw special ability. It's why I haven't put them on here at all. But after all of this, do I think that the Orvius is a good weapon? It's deserving of the former and the insane amount of Kuba to build it. I'm going to say it depends on what you want it for. If you want it as a traditional spam E melee or for the combos and you're not going to use the charge attack at all, no, it's not worth it. In fact, to be really honest here, outside of the charge channeled mechanic, it's actually a pretty terrible melee weapon. The damage, quite frankly, is awful, doesn't scale at all. Even at level 40 with a full build, the melee itself is actually starting to struggle. However, if you want it for the charge attack mechanics, then it's absolutely worth it. The Inaros and Orvius combo you see in the footage is insane. You throw out the Pocket Sand and then you can annihilate groups of enemies with the explosion. It's incredible, and honestly, that saves this weapon. It's a great example of a very mediocre weapon that is saved by a cool and interesting mechanic. Combine the charge channel attack with anything that uses stealth multipliers, so Inaris' Desiccation, Wukong's Cloudwalker, Radial Blind, Prism, the list goes on really. It's one of the best scaling melees in the game because of its ability to kill groups of enemies at a time. When I was leveling and testing the weapon, I was looking at it, the damage I was putting out, and wondering what I was missing. Why are people so amazed by the damage on this thing? Why are people saying it's amazing? Because I just don't see it. But that was before I discovered the channel charge attack and the devastation that can bring. It's the only saving grace for the weapon, and I hope it doesn't get reduced because it's relying on a whole bunch of things to make it strong. A fully built frame with the power to boost it, energy to cast the ability, energy used for the channeling, and you've got to have a full build on the weapon as well. So you've got a former on your frame, former on your weapon. So many things go into making this combo work, and with that amount of stuff working together, you should have a fantastic payoff. And with the Orvius, it does. I came into this review prepared to say no, don't max it. The special attack, that charge channel attack, that changed this for me. If you can put up with using it on specific frames, if you can put up with charge attacking constantly, then this weapon can be a good one for you. If you don't care for the charge attack, or you don't like doing charge attacks all the time, this is definitely not the weapon for you, because outside of that mechanic, it's a very mediocre weapon otherwise. So what do you guys think on the weapon? Are you likely to use charge attacks now? It's got a payoff that might be worth it. I'd love to hear your opinions on it. As always though, many thanks for watching. Smash that like button if you liked the video, sub if you like my content, and I shall see you in the next video.